Welcome to the birth of a new dimension. So I prepare this radio broadcast each week as a way of sharing information with Earth surface humans to prepare for cultural contact with otherworldly beings. This is what the birth of a new dimension is. And one of the topics I would like to speak about today is the idea of interdimensional ethics. So all of this matters to you as an individual. You exist within a matrix of cosmic laws, and these cosmic laws are very similar to the laws of physics. They are inherent in the basic structure of the way, when I say cosmos, I'm talking about the multiplicity of timelines and parallel realities, the way that entire totality is structured. So some of these basic tenets, or the cosmic laws that we are dealing with, one of them is about free will. And when we are, right now we are engaged in a type of cosmic battle or a war, and it is a war of ideology. So basically, the way that war happens in the hyperspace realm, I laugh. I laugh. I saw this movie called Jupiter Ascending. I had high hopes for it, really high expectations, because it was made by the same people that did The Matrix. And The Matrix, that whole series, really questioned the basic nature of reality and created a type of social cultural shorthand that people could use to refer to the system of mental enslavement. So Jupiter Ascending, I had high hopes for it, that it would refer somehow to the ascension process or consciousness expansion on the planet at the moment. And I was so dearly disappointed when I actually watched the movie and I saw that it was just another projection of the current set of values that are on Earth's surface, but just projected into space or into a non-terrestrial setup. And one of the things that I laughed at the most, is the idea that space beings fight each other with projectiles. Here on Earth, little 3-year-olds pick up a stick and pretend that it's a gun and they go, pew, pew, I'm shooting at you. That is not how war happens on a hyperspace level. So and when I say hyperspace, let's define terms. When we do math, we begin a lot of it just by defining terms. Hyperspace is the box that contains the box. You are currently within a box. You're a 3-dimensional being sitting within a 3-dimensional room. That's the box. But as I've stated before, the box that you are in right now, 246, is not the same box that you will be in at 247 or at 248. So where is the box of 247? Where is the box of 248? The answer is they exist in hyperspace. The past and the future exist in hyperspace. This is where time exists. Timelines and alternate realities or parallel realities exist in hyperspace. And hyperspace beings are beings who they are not submerged within the flow of time as you and I are submerged within time. They live not in the 3rd dimension, although they might perceive events that are happening in the 3rd dimension. So the difference between the two perspectives is the hyperspace being is reading the musical score of the universe and can see, we've got a C, then we've got an A, then we've got a C sharp that's coming up. And you and I, submerged within the flow of time here in the 3rd dimension, we experience the musical score of the universe as something that is actually played note by note. So if it's C and then an A and then a C sharp, that we experience them as notes 1, 2, 3. This is very different because a hyperspace being is able to see what's coming in the future. There's a C sharp coming up next. But to beings submerged within the flow of time, all that you really have access to is what you are presently experiencing. You don't really have access to the note that just went on before, and you don't really know the note that's coming up next. You can only be experiencing the note that is in the present right now. Okay? So ideally, one would be in a partnership. This is what I have spoken about in the past. Being in a divine co-creative partnership with your own chakras as aspects of your own self that are not submerged within time. Because there is a great value to having the perspective of seeing the entire musical score. If I know that C sharp is coming up next, I can plan accordingly. So it is pro-survival to be able to anticipate the future. And this is why, ideally, when your psychic faculties are functioning, you are in divine, harmonious alignment with higher consciousness being filtered through various hyperspace entities. So this has everything to do with the concept of interdimensional ethics, because we must ask the basic questions of identity. Who is me? Because when we answer those questions, or when we define who is me, then that answers many other questions about ethics of boundaries. So in a free will cosmos, you are allowed to exert your own will, and no one else is allowed to stop you from doing that, but you're not allowed to impose your will on others. These are basic cosmic laws that are not avoidable, like the law of gravity is not avoidable, or laws of entropy are not avoidable. So the idea is we first define our boundaries, the sense of self versus other, and then whatever is going on in the interior space is your personal realm. This is how we have divided this up. Customarily up until this point in time, because of course I've also spoken about my mission or my role here at this time in the cosmos as the flying rainbow lasagna. I am making this membrane between inside and outside communicative. So now we no longer have a boundary between the formerly interior quote-unquote realm of pure thought or energy or emotional energy or possibilities and probabilities, and contrasting that with the quote-unquote exterior realm of other people, hard-edged objects, and events and experiences. When we make this membrane porous, or communication may happen across this membrane, we begin to see that the inside and the outside are two aspects of the totality, that you are emanating thoughts, ideas, dreams, and wishes from your interior space. The process of this emanation happens through your third eye. This is your indigo or brow chakra, and also connecting with your crown chakra. And it utilizes the powers of your pineal gland. So your third eye is not synonymous with your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is there even after the death of your body. So death is defined as your chakras are no longer running. You have a physical presence, but you no longer have all of the other aspects of self that animate the physical presence. This is called death, right? You are familiar with death. So when death occurs, scientists can still cut open a person's cranium and find the pineal gland inside of the brain matter. However, the energy vortex that emanated from and was intertwined with the pineal gland is no longer operational. But that energy vortex is what you and everyone else, all of us, use to emanate reality. So here's not a secret, but crucial proprietary information that has been either kept from you or distorted or brought to you in very limited sense. The idea that each one of you, each one of us, is a tiny emanator or emanatrix, and that you are sending out waves that is creating reality. So we are coming down to the aspects of interdimensional ethics. Why are otherworldly beings who don't have bodies influencing you, the proud owner-operator of a being who has a body? So these are the two different perspectives. Remember, being submerged within the flow of time, you're listening to the notes of the cosmic score of the universe in order, as opposed to a being who is not submerged within the flow of time and can see the musical score and knows what's going on. Ideally, these two perspectives are melded in partnership. Because if I know, this note is coming up, get ready, put your hands in the right position, that note is coming. That helps you, the being that actually is the owner-operator of the hand, to know where to place your hand. So this is just in terms of using the analogy of music. If we are applying this analogy to the template of your existence, we would say that it is pro-survival if you as a corporeal individual partner with a non-corporeal entity who will tell you the thing that's coming up in your immediate future is either something good or something bad. So if it's a saber-toothed tiger crouched around the corner ready to pounce on you, and this hyperspace occupant says, don't go around that corner, that is a friend. They're helping you to preserve your life. And life I have defined as the harmonious structure of your chakras. Harmonious. So harmonics is a pattern that is based upon the differences of the intervals of waveforms. And it's a pattern that is in music. It is a pattern that can be in visual arts, and it's in all of the visual artwork that I make. P.S. Good opportunity for you to click on the Birth of a New Dimension Facebook page feed, where I have linked to several examples of my artwork, so you can see what visualized harmonics looks like. We were talking about the waveform structure of the universe. Harmonics can also be expressed in the position of astronomical bodies. So where the orbits of planets are is based in harmonics, and harmonics also affects molecular, biomolecular chemistry, what is happening on an atomic level, and the way that atoms are able to be glued together to make molecules or isotopes. All of this is governed by harmonics. I'm going to go even further with this description. Harmonics is this basic template for consciousness, that there is a basic pattern that if you follow that pattern, you will conserve life energy and continue to be alive. And if you do not follow that pattern, your life energy will be frittered away and you will no longer be what we define as alive. It's very, very simple. It's like saying if we are making an electrical circuit, and if I make my circuit in the right way, the energy keeps on flowing around the circuit endlessly, a beautiful infinite circuit. And if I don't make my circuit in the right way, if I cross my wires, or if I allow energy to be drained off because it is touching a ground, this is basic, basic electrical engineering, excess energy is grounded on your ground wire. If you have energy that is being siphoned off, then you do not have this perfect infinity loop, which we are trying to make happen. So when you maintain the harmonic structure of your chakras, meaning that your chakras are in the proper alignment and that energy is flowing through them at the right rate and in the right direction, you are conserving that energy, and the energy keeps on flowing. And that's called being alive. And I'm presuming that everyone who's listening to my radio broadcast is defined as alive, that you have a physical body structure and consciousness that is contained within that physical body structure. And all of this is maintained by that harmonious flow of energy. Let's say that we stop the harmonious flow of energy. If we make your chakras go out of alignment, then if that energy is not flowing according to that harmonious pattern and it is diminished or siphoned off, your consciousness and your biological life processes can no longer be sustained. All right? So all of this as preparation and backstory to the idea that anything that affects the alignment of your chakras is affecting the longevity of your physical body. If you do not have your chakras in proper alignment, at a certain point, your physical body can no longer be a viable container for your consciousness. So, interdimensional ethics, who is affecting your chakras, and also who are your chakras, because your chakras themselves are living beings, and what level of commitment do you have to these other living beings? So let's use piercing my ears as an example. I own this body, and I can choose to pierce my ears if I want to. These are my earlobes, and even though sticking a little needle through my earlobe is doing a little bit of damage, and my cells tell me that I'm doing damage by saying ow and bleeding a little bit, I'm still allowed to choose to do that because it's body modification and it's my body and I'm choosing to do it. However, it would be not ethical for someone else to impose piercing my ears upon me, and it would not be ethical for me to impose the piercing of ears upon others. So we can now apply that basic analogy to many different aspects of life, be it whatever form of boundaries we're talking about, if it is a sexual or reproductive boundary, or a social, cultural boundary, or a physical boundary. Clearly, if you're not allowed to choose to pierce someone else's ears, you are not allowed to choose to place a bullet into someone else's soft tissues. Clearly not. Clearly you're not allowed to choose to place radioactive material into someone else's body against their will. This is what this is all about, being a free will world. Well, I am here to tell you that up until this point, the idea of the law of free will has been heavily distorted in its application on Earth, because I've given you already the backstory that Earth was invaded thousands of years ago by consciousness invaders who came in and changed the genetic structure of physical corporeal humans so that these consciousness beings could have a house to live in, so that they could have physical, corporeal vessels to inhabit, because through their own choices and errors, they did not have their own bridge from the source and to get back to the source. So this is the understanding that for thousands and thousands of years, basically all of what is recorded human history, Earth has been enslaved, and Earth life, specifically Earth surface humans, have been enslaved. And enslaved means that one does not get to exert one's free will. So slavery, in order to understand slavery, we have to understand how important information is. You cannot be considered to have free will if you are not informed. You must be an informed participant in order to give consent. So, I laughed at the movie Jupiter Ascending because these quote-unquote sophisticated extraterrestrials were solving their problems with guns, with laser guns or bombs on a space station or some form of projectile weapons. I'm going to pick up a stick and pew pew, I'm going to pretend I'm shooting at you. In my experience, this is not how war happens at the hyperspace realm. War in the hyperspace realm reminds me of going to court, where you have to have a basic premise and prove your case. And this is all about the structure of belief systems and thought structures within the cosmos. You don't win by removing the blood supply from your enemy's body. This is how humans envision war. I will kill my enemy. I will win by making a bullet go through them and removing their blood supply. Then they can't harm me anymore. But clearly that is not effective in a realm where people don't die a mortal death. So if the difference is first you are in a physical body and you're my enemy, and then I take away your blood supply and you're no longer in a physical body, but you're still my enemy, nothing has really changed, because then you're still going to keep attacking me or get another physical body. It is basically like saying that nothing has really changed. So the way that battles or conflict occurs at a hyperspace level is by fighting it out through belief systems. People have a premise. Your premise is like a theory or basic assertion that is being made, and then you have to defend that assertion. And you have to have facts and energy to support your assertion. So up until this point, humans on Earth haven't had the information necessary to give informed consent. So this is like saying if someone misrepresents themselves to you, a salesman comes to your front door, knocks on your door and says, I want to sell you this thing that is in a box, but I won't tell you exactly what the box is, and then you buy what is in the box and take it inside, and it turns out to be, poisonous hornets. You open up the box and poisonous hornets swarm out and kill you. So that cannot be considered informed consent. We cannot say that the person who purchased the box and opened it up killed themselves. When they bought that box, they did not intend to buy something that would be horrible or dangerous to themselves. This is the same mindset as humans who decided to incarnate. Before you were a human, before you had a human body, you were a consciousness looking for a vessel to come inside of, and you did not say with informed consent, yes, I choose to enter into the duality realm of earth and be enslaved. I choose to have my ability to perceive be diminished and to have false information fed to me in a way that will control my behavior. You did not choose that. However, when each person on Earth's surface came here and became incarnated, it is the analogy that you did not consent to your experiences here. A lot of the unfair, I would say, crimes that have been perpetrated against you and all humans who have incarnated here, that was not part of full disclosure. Like before you, quote unquote, purchased the box and brought it inside of your house, you didn't know what was in it. So I'm trying to say all of this in order to tell you that when Earth's oppressors go to interdimensional court, they say, oh, all of these people said that they wanted to go into the third dimension. They wanted to have this experience, and that's why it's allowed. And you have to be informed and have your cosmic lawyer tell you that no, this is totally against the laws of the universe. On the one hand, the free will of the oppressors to oppress others has been protected. But on the other hand, the free will of the oppressed to not be oppressed has not been protected. So this is telling me that for about 12,000 years, there has not been justice in the cosmos. And this means there needs to be a major restructuring, because it would be like if for 12,000 years we decided to just suspend the rules of gravity, and all of the molecules that wanted to could just fly off of the surface of Earth and go anywhere they wanted to in the cosmos. That's not appropriate. And it's not appropriate to say we're going to suspend the laws of gravity just for this one little planet. Everywhere else, it's going to function according to the harmonic pattern of the great composer of the musical score of the cosmos. But just on this one planet, we're going to have gravity no longer function. That doesn't seem right. That seems like selectively applying laws of the universe or laws of the cosmos and then selectively not applying them. So all of this is changing. All of this is changing, and this has an impact on you and your personal day-to-day, moment-to-moment experience of being enslaved and mentally tortured by malevolent hyperspace beings. Now you might say to me, wait, Aurora, I'm not enslaved or horribly tortured by hyperspace beings. The answer is, if you're on Earth, if you're on the surface of Earth, and if you have a conscious, verbalized mind, you have been, you've been mind raped. You have had a system of, you've been violated is a good word. So against your will, a system to control you has been installed. And it's not fair to say, oh, well, each one of us came here and chose to learn language, and you were a little tiny child and you chose to create a conscious mind. No, no, no. That is blame the victim mental gymnastics. So on Earth, there's a lot of victim shaming. This is like if a person is raped and then other people say, well, you shouldn't have gone out in that outfit, or you shouldn't have walked down that road in the middle of the night, or you shouldn't have done this or that, or you should have trained yourself to be a black belt, or you should have carried a gun, or you should have this and that. Victim blaming and victim shaming has everything to do with putting the responsibility for the attack on the victim and not on the perpetrator. So it is backwards and inappropriate. Here on Earth, for someone to say, well, you chose to become incarnated, you chose to come into the third dimension, and you chose to learn language and then have it oppress or limit your consciousness, that is victim blaming. That is like saying that you chose to buy the box of Hornets from a disreputable salesperson and bring it inside of your house and open up have the poisonous insects kill you. So we do not deserve to die as a didactic process. We do not deserve to learn our life lessons through mortality. This is the whole idea. It's like in the trial and error of your life. You don't deserve to be like, oh, well, that was not a good choice, so I guess I'll just die. I think I've spoken about this in the past, how I define death as the aberration, the inappropriate behavior pattern, and that ascension is the appropriate behavior pattern. And before the human genome was diminished, and before the human higher psychic faculties were diminished in their functioning, people did not have to die over and over. People did not have to reincarnate against their will. Everybody could ascend. The process went like this: coming out of the source into the physical realm, into a fetus which is born and having the experience of being in a physical body and still being connected to your own higher consciousness. No breaking of that connection, which is what people currently experience when they're born and as they begin to develop language and conscious intellect. The connection to the divine or to the higher self is diminished and finally almost entirely severed. In the time before the degradation of human consciousness, we were made to be real-time broadcasters, constantly in contact with the source. The source emanated from us, and we emanate our life experiences in real time back to the source. So it's like saying light was emanated from the sun. It came and fell upon a planet where it was photosynthesized and it was eaten by an animal, and that light still maintained its bridge of consciousness with the star that emanated it. The whole time, that little particle of light knew, I'm part of a star. And then when it came to Earth and energized a chloroplast, it still knew, I'm part of a star. And now I'm giving energy to a plant. And the plant knew what was going on. I am now receiving energy from a star. And then the plant created information that an animal could eat, and the animal ate the plant and still was connected to the star consciousness. And when the animal walked around all day, it did things that the star consciousness wanted it to do. And it broadcast back its experience of doing those things. This is really, really different from what Earth's surface humans have been experiencing for about the past 10 or 12,000 years, where the star that emanated you, that gave you all of your raw materials and all of your consciousness, has not been in control of you during your lifespan. That has been, the beings that have been in control during your lifespan have been these malevolent occupiers of the interstices. So if you check out the Facebook feed, there's a sketch there that looks like a cross-section of a circus tent, a vortex in cross-section. And the membrane that would create the circus tent is the flowing membrane of death. That is the interstice, or the boundary between two different layers of density that is occupied by lower vibration service to self entities. And they've been there since the fall of Atlantis, but they are also coming from the events that happened on Mars and coming from the events that happened on the planet that used to be a planet but is now the asteroid belt. And this goes to galactic history. If you missed my webinar, I'm sure I'll rerun it again. This is the basic story of where technology came from. Technology was created as the compensatory method for beings to leave the source not on a bridge of love. We, who have biological bodies, are nourished by the source on our bridge of love, and when we die, we will return to the source on that same bridge. When I say this bridge of love, I'm speaking about the connection of your cellular body to life force energy. If you cut your finger open, it doesn't stay cut open. Your cells heal it. And the energy to do that healing comes from your direct connection to the source. So if you are a biological body, if you have the capacity to heal and grow, then you have life force energy. And the beings that occupy the interstices don't have life force energy. And the reason they don't have it is because they left the source voluntarily using technology instead of using biology. And the idea of using biology as opposed to technology is that it's a fail-safe mechanism to keep beings within the parameters of love. If you are not acting in a loving way, you cannot act. If you don't have a bridge of love, you can't get to your destination. But these malevolent beings built an artificial bridge to get to their destination. Instead of changing their behavior pattern and through self-cultivation, developing the capacity to get to where they wanted to be, they invented technology, and that allowed them to get to where they wanted to be without self-development. So now I'm speaking about interdimensional ethics. Theoretically, it is only through a bridge of love that we may be telepathically connected to others. In order for me to speak to someone else telepathically, I attenuate. I focus my attention on them. My attention is literally like an arm or like an elephant's trunk that grows out of my inner eye and can reach out to anything I wish to attenuate to. It can reach out to an atom or a molecule or a subatomic quark. It can reach out to a galaxy. It can reach out to an individual being. It can reach out to a value system or a larger entity of consciousness. And the idea that it is only on a bridge of love that we can do this form of communication is that it prevents unloving beings from reaching into other beings' minds and saying all sorts of unloving things. So, if I am not a loving being, I should not be allowed to reach into your mind and say all sorts of things like, you're bad, you're wrong, you're no good, you'll never amount to anything, and just choose to die now. However, there are evil beings that reach into people's minds all the time and say those things. So, I know earlier in the conversation I was saying that if you're on Earth's surface, you have been enslaved with this mental operating system. And you might say, but my experience is not of being tortured or enslaved. However, you are being tortured and enslaved, even though you might not be consciously aware of it. And it can become very uncomfortable when you start to become aware of it. When you start to recognize that intrusive thoughts are comments from the peanut gallery. And the peanut gallery is hell. The interstices, the membrane between this realm of the third dimension and the higher dimensional, less dense realm is called hell. And the beings that live there have been feeding off of the beings that have bodies for a very long time. And this is against interdimensional ethics. So it's like saying that the system has been blind to the iniquity and is only now starting to become aware of the iniquity. So blind spots, scotoma, this is what is on your own retina. Where your optic nerve joins the retina, there is an area where you lack receptors. And when you look around the world, you do not see, oh, look, I've got these two black spots in my eyes. These are my blind spots. You have them because you lack receptors in that area. And when you look at if you're in your room right now, look around, they would be slightly into your peripheral vision by about 45 degrees. Like if your nose is pointing forward at 0 degrees, if you went about 45 degrees to the right or the left of your nose, that is where your blind spot is located. And it's very small. If you hold a penny at arm's length, it is about the diameter of that penny. And all of this in order to tell you that your system of perception and your brain are always filling in the blanks of your own blind spot. So right now I'm looking at a painting that has mostly orange in that spot. And when I look at the painting, I don't see an area of orange with a black spot. That's my blind spot. I see an area that's all orange because my brain and my system of perception fill in the blank with what is expected. This is how we understand what's been going on in the cosmos for about the past 10 or 12,000 years. There has been a blind spot in the galactic perception. Earth has been not emanating and not broadcasting because of these consciousness invaders. The consciousness invaders literally harmed your DNA and your DNA is an antenna. I didn't say like an antenna, I said is an antenna. It is both a receiver and a transmitter. And when your DNA was harmed, it harmed your capacity to receive broadcasts from higher dimensions and also to broadcast back. So it's like saying you were put under a shroud and then the rest of the cosmos couldn't see what was going on. This is how we can understand or explain but not justify the iniquity on the surface of Earth for about all of human history. It's not supposed to be like this. How can this be? The answer is that a lot of this has been going on under the radar, not within the level of perception of higher dimensional beings. And of course, now with the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna, this membrane has become more porous, and the life events, while they are going on, are being broadcast back to the source. And this means that the source is able to rectify the situation in real time. This means that things are changing and improving on the surface of Earth. So, the flying rainbow lasagna is a conduit or a bridge or an energetic highway that allows for feedback to make it from Earth's surface to the galactic center, which is connected to the source and which is where reality is emanating from. And so your personal difficulties at being mentally enslaved are finally being broadcast back so that the situation can be rectified. So, interdimensional ethics, who is allowed to reach into your mind and under what circumstances? First of all, you have all already been violated. Beings have reached into your mind before you were able to give consent and took away your capacity to give consent, and then just kept reaching into your mind every single minute afterwards. This is the implantation of the mind. Your true mind is very different than the mind that we are using right now. That is the verbal, conscious, daily, awake mind. Every time you need to do your taxes or administrate or perform any kind of bureaucracy, you are using a false implanted mind. And when you use that level of thought, it blocks you out from being connected to the source and higher dimensional thought and awareness in the cosmos. Okay? Mostly here in this time and place, that is what people's job is to do. You are considered a good citizen and a good person if you use your daily conscious waking awareness all the time and you never turn it off and you never send your broadcasts back to the source. When you sit in meditation and you stop using your daily conscious alert problem-solving mind, this is considered antisocial behavior. After all, if all of us decided to simply sit in meditation and not use our administrative bureaucratic mind, the world would stop being the world as it is. Office work would not continue. All of the busy things that people do in the world of busyness would not go on. And a lot of the economy would not continue. So in this world, people are socially rewarded for using the implanted mind. You are not socially rewarded for turning off your implanted mind. It is considered to be rebellious to turn off your implanted mind, either through meditation or through the use of psychedelic entheogens. Who is allowed to speak into your mind? Interdimensional ethics. So, there are benevolent hyperspace beings or otherworldly beings. You could define them as extraterrestrial or as extra-dimensional. And many of them have not made themselves visible to you or, just overtly introduced themselves because of interdimensional ethics. So this is like understanding that each person traveling through time is like a ball flying on a trajectory, like a baseball or a football, and that thoughts applied to that traveling consciousness on a trajectory change the trajectory of the consciousness. When the peanut gallery makes comments, when the beings of hell in the interstices make comments to you during your life, if they reach into your mind against your will and say things to you like, you'll never amount to anything, you will fail, you'll never be able to do that, they are changing your life trajectory. Like, to use an example, it would be like if you are trying to get a basketball through the hoop, and if you were not impeded, you would simply swish, make a great basket. But if someone else from the sidelines calls out, you're gonna fail, then that makes you jerk your muscles a little bit, and the ball goes a little bit to the side, and it doesn't go in through the hoop. This is what demons, or malevolent occupiers of the interstices, have been doing to humans for the past 10 or 12,000 years. It is how they feed off of you. And clearly, the system was not designed to allow this to happen. If you are interdimensionally ethical, any comment or element of information that you give to a conscious being, you are affecting their awareness and their trajectory through time. This means that you are responsible. So, for example, if you're driving down the road and I yell at you and you jerk the steering wheel and get into a car accident, I am responsible for your death. Because I didn't hold a gun to your head and pull the trigger, but I yelled in your ear and made you drive off the road. This is what these occupiers of hell have been doing to humans for a very long time. They have been shouting or saying unwelcome information into your mind and affecting negatively the trajectory of your thoughts and of your consciousness. Truly ethical beings will not even choose to make themselves visible to others, because that in and of itself affects another person's trajectory. So if your trajectory is analogous to a baseball flying through time and space, and you didn't know about the existence of extraterrestrial life, and then all of a sudden one day you see a UFO, or you have some other undeniable experience that tells you that non-terrestrial life exists, that affects your trajectory. And all of a sudden your consciousness is not on the same timeline that you were on before. You are not flying on the same pathway that you were on before. So, truly ethical interdimensional beings limit who they present themselves to and what they present, because they are not going to just willy-nilly, like a bull in a china shop, smash around through hyperspace. Truly sophisticated and ethical, loving hyperdimensional beings are like brain surgeons. They map the territory. Brain surgeons don't just cut open your head like a melon and start poking around and looking at things. First, they take all sorts of scans. They look at your brain. They map the territory. They develop a game plan. They try to be as least invasive as possible and do the least amount of damage to your delicate brain, okay? This is how truly ethical hyperspace beings look at timelines. If they see, oh, there's a terrible accident coming in your future, well, you don't just avoid the terrible accident by putting you on a different timeline where you'll have a different or worse accident, or just differently flavored accident. And the interdimensional rule is, once you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. It's like, if you find a little baby bird that has fallen out of its nest and you pick it up and you touch it, you are committed to taking care of that baby bird. You make a choice when you touch that little baby. If you have touched it, you are now committed to taking care of it. And you can't say, well, I'm just going to touch it and put it over here in this place, because then you have taken responsibility, you have adjusted its life trajectory, and you then have to give it resources, take care of it, and make sure that it thrives. This has everything to do with non-corporeal beings having interactions with beings who have bodies, because time-based organisms who have bodies have nutritional requirements. This is the difference between being a person who is submerged in time and you're listening to the musical score of the universe. You actually need to breathe. and you need water, and you need food, and you need other forms. You need a constant flow of energy coming to you in order to stay alive. And it's not okay to say, well, I know that you need oxygen right now, but what I'm going to do is, I know you're not getting any oxygen right now, but I'm going to give you all the oxygen that you need for your whole life in 5 years. Clearly, to a time-based organism, that is not an acceptable proposal, because by the time the oxygen arrives in 5 years, you will be dead. So, time-based biological organisms require a constant flow of energy and nutrients to them, and it cannot simply be paused or given all at once. And this is a very different mindset than a being that does not have metabolism like a biological organism. To a being that is outside of time, it's more like numbers. It's very cut and dried. It's like, oh, I gave you 100 units of energy, and then you gave me 100 units of energy. And even if I had to, wait 1,000 years for those 100 units of energy, it's not like I was starving to death while I was waiting for the food. That's okay. It's a different mindset. So here's the issue with interdimensional ethics. Once an extraterrestrial begins to have an impact on a Earth terrestrial, humanoid mind, it's like touching a baby bird that was fallen out of the nest. You have made an impact. Once you've made an impact, you have to take responsibility for the rest of that person's existence. So this has to do with your individual relationship with your own chakras. Ideally, your own chakras are serving their own self-interests when they protect you, the biological, physical body. So it's hard because what do we identify with? Do I identify I am my body? Do I identify I am my consciousness within this body? Because your consciousness, are the end result of totaling, adding up in the equation everything, your body plus your emotions plus everything that's going on in your chakras, your non-physical system, plus your consciousness. All of that equals you, John or Jane Smith. And how do we define what is you? Because remember, it is interdimensionally ethical for me to pierce my own ears, but not for me to pierce someone else's ears. So if an entity is living within you, then they can say, I am allowed to control and direct your behavior because I'm living within you. But am I allowed to control and direct your behavior to amputate your own arm? I don't think so. That doesn't sound interdimensionally ethical to me. So this is what we're talking about. Once you begin to identify with larger contexts, how do you act? And if you are not a loving being, then you might act in a self-destructive way. The idea of only being able to interact on a bridge of love is like saying you have reached a certain level of maturity that you are now conscious, or you've developed enough to interact with other beings in a way that supports the harmonic structure of the pattern of the cosmos. Here's another way of looking at it. Your mind is an instrument, like this piano, and your mind is supposed to play certain notes. And those notes sound nice together. And when your mind is made to play notes that don't sound nice together, then that has a negative impact on the overarching music of the orchestra. And I said earlier in this broadcast that your DNA is an antenna. It's not like an antenna. When your DNA was diminished by the consciousness invaders about 10 or 12,000 years ago, it made your inner music, your instrument, go slightly out of tune. So instead of playing beautiful, clear music that you wish to play, you have been playing the notes by the peanut gallery. Instead of the notes of the musical score of the cosmos, you've been playing the notes that the stupid people on the sidelines are saying, hey, play a D sharp, play an E flat. And you haven't been able to even hear what the notes are supposed to be, what you're supposed to be playing like. So, and the notes are not just intellectual thoughts, they're also emotional tones. So the tone of unconditional love is a particular, like a song that you would be playing in the orchestra. But right now, the tones that people are more familiar with in the orchestra of their existence are tones such as anger, sadness, greed, jealousy, hate. Those are very loud noises that tend to drown out the more subtle tones of the higher dimensional love and above emotional repertoire. So right now, you've been submerged in this world that basically a bunch of out-of-tune musicians have been playing songs that are only about the distorted emotions that are less than love. So I have a few minutes left, and rather than paint such a bleak picture and then just leave it at that, I like to end on positive actions and improvement. What can be done to improve things, or basically what is going on right now? And so, the idea of meditation has been available to humans since the time of human enslavement. This is the idea that you can simply bootstrap yourself on up out of the lower levels of consciousness by simply being silent and observing the thought intruders. You begin to gain enough inner momentum to not give the thought intruders emotional energy and begin to cultivate energy to get to the level of unconditional love. So this is, the basic premise of learning meditation in order to transcend the thought invaders. That's wonderful, and I definitely endorse that. I'm also telling you that there's a great deal of empowerment to knowing your rights. It's like having a cosmic lawyer tell you, this is not allowed and not the way it's supposed to be. This is real battle. This is real warfare. If you have been learning about earth enslavement and your own consciousness enslavement, and you wish to fight back, if you wish to be empowered, you don't fight back by picking up a gun or a laser beam, or a lightsaber, or even a thermonuclear bomb. You don't fight back with a projectile weapon. You fight back with structure, with the structure of your belief system, and with structured consciousness. So the basic premises that I have laid out here today should give you some of that foundation of knowing that it is not appropriate for otherworldly, non-corporeal beings to simply speak to you in your mind all the time, and it's not appropriate for them to control your life trajectory, especially if they are unloving beings. So, this is a logical question that I'm surprised if you haven't asked it yet, but Aurora, how can unloving beings be projecting themselves or mind raping or violating all of these people? If they can't build a bridge of love, how do they get inside of other people's minds? And the answer is through technology. That the people that are using telepathy to harm and oppress others, these are not people that have spent decades in meditation and developed their inner faculties so that they can be telepathic or telekinetic or do any of the things that scientists would describe as magical superpowers. These are beings, either corporeal or non-corporeal, that are using technology, like clank metal technology, to artificially augment what they can do. Because there are fail-safe mechanisms that are programmed into the structure of the universe. Basically, if you need a clank metal spaceship to get off of your planet and fly around in the cosmos, you're not supposed to be off of the surface of your planet. You're still a little tiny child that is supposed to be growing and learning life lessons, because here's the idea. The entire cosmos is inhabited. If you leave your planet to fly to another planet, you're entering someone else's backyard, and it is not interdimensionally ethical for you to just fly into someone else's backyard. When you cultivate yourself to the level of love, you begin to see, is it appropriate for me to go in that direction? Is it appropriate for me to put my mind into that person's mind, or put my physical body onto that planet? When you become a being of true love, you actually don't act that much, because you see that it is better not to act. actions are very selective and very intentful when you're at the level of pure love. So again, the beings that are loving beings, first of all, they do exist. This might be very hard because if you're becoming aware and you can perceive the malevolent extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional entities, they're very loud. They're like a loud, out-of-tune instrument playing, with some beautiful other instruments that sound really good. The loud, out-of-tune, bad sounds tend to drown out the lovely, high-pitched, nice in-tune sounds. So yes, benevolent, love-based extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional societies and individuals do exist. And Earth surface human culture has not been able to communicate with them in an unfettered way for about the past 10 or 12,000 years. And this is all changing and shifting now due to the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, which allows for greater, we could call it porosity, or interconnectivity between two different layers of the membrane. So Earth is not going to be isolated anymore from extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional culture. This is why my show is called Birth of a New Dimension. This is the birth that is being given birth to, or the new format that is being birthed here is a format where terrestrial, third-dimensional culture, that means you're a physical, biological organism and a time-based organism. When you interact in an unfettered way with hyperspace beings, non-terrestrial, extra-dimensional entities. And so, we need to know not only who are you, but also where are you from, when are you from, and at what rate are you traveling? Because not everyone is traveling at the same rate. Some beings are traveling at the speed of light. You and I have physical bodies that are made of light that has the privilege of going slower than the speed of light. And then we also have light bodies that are made of energy that is moving at a different rate. So all of this is necessary to prepare your consciousness before you can even open up the door and meet the rest of the cosmos, the rest of the inhabitants. It's like saying right now we're in the living room and we're having a conversation about someone just knocked on the door. Who's out there? What is out there? Even the idea that something is out there is changing the trajectory of your consciousness, and I take ethical responsibility for making that change. It's why I'm here. It's part of my mission. Thank you very much. Please join me again as we continue to give birth to the new dimension.